4 years ago, at my father's funeral, my own sister stole my fiancé. She leaned in, smirked, and whispered, "Poor Demi. 38, alone. No one will ever choose you. Everyone thought my life was over. They were wrong." 4 years ago, I stood beside my father's coffin, with my hands locked together so tightly my fingers went numb. I remember thinking that if I let go, if I relaxed even for a second, I would collapse right there on the church floor. My father was gone. The man who had raised me alone after my mother died, who taught me how to drive, how to argue without shouting, how to survive heartbreak. That day was supposed to be about saying goodbye to him. Instead, it became the day my sister took everything else. The church smelled like lilies and old wood. The kind of place where grief feels staged, where people whisper instead of cry and wipe their eyes carefully so their makeup doesn't smear. Soft organ music played in the background, but it felt distant, like it was happening in another room. People kept coming up to me. "I'm so sorry for your loss. He was such a good man. You're so strong, Demi." I nodded. I thanked them. I smiled when I was supposed to. Inside, I was empty. Beside me stood my fiancé, Mark. We'd been together for 6 years. Engaged for 1. He wore a black suit I'd helped him pick out, his hand resting lightly on my back. Not squeezing. Not comforting. Just there. Like an obligation. I told myself he was grieving too. My father had been good to him. Like a second dad. I wanted to believe that. Then the church doors opened. I didn't need to turn around to know it was her. I recognized my sister's presence the same way you recognize a storm before it hits, by the shift in the air. By the way people suddenly became aware that something else had entered the room. Lena walked in like she owned the moment. Perfect hair. Perfect posture. Black dress tailored just enough to stand out without looking disrespectful. She was 2 years younger than me, but people always assumed she was the older one. The confident one. The one who never doubted herself. My little sister. She slid into the pew behind us, her heels barely making a sound on the carpet. I felt her eyes on my back before I saw her. Then, instead of leaning toward me, instead of whispering something supportive, she leaned toward Mark. Her mouth moved close to his ear. I didn't hear what she said. But I saw his reaction. His shoulders shifted. His jaw tightened. And for half a second, just half, I saw something flicker across his face. Recognition. The minister began speaking about my father. About love. About family. I wasn't listening anymore. My pulse roared in my ears. I told myself I was being paranoid. That grief was making me suspicious. Lena had always been affectionate. Always bold. Always crossing lines without noticing them. Then, during the prayer, she stood up. Not to bow her head. She stepped into the aisle and walked toward the front. People glanced at each other. Someone coughed. The minister paused mid-sentence, confused. Lena didn't hesitate. She walked straight past the coffin. Straight past my father. And stopped right beside Mark. She placed her hand lightly on his arm. A small touch. An intimate one. The kind of touch that didn't belong at a funeral. The kind that didn't belong to a sister. Mark didn't pull away. And then, like she wanted to make sure I saw, Lena turned her head and looked straight at me. She smiled. Not a sad smile. Not a sympathetic smile. A smirk. The kind that says, "I'm taking something you can't stop me from taking." My throat closed. My body froze. I wanted to scream her name. I wanted to grab her wrist and yank her away from him. I wanted someone, anyone, to notice what was happening. But no one did. Or worse, they did, and chose not to care. After the service, people gathered in small clusters, murmuring, hugging, offering condolences like they were handing out business cards. I stood near the front, staring at my father's coffin, trying to memorize the shape of it like it was the last solid thing left in my life. That's when Lena came up beside me. "So tragic," she said softly, dabbing at dry eyes. "First Mom, now Dad. You've always had such bad luck, Demi." I turned to her. "What are you talking about?" She leaned in closer, close enough that only I could hear her. "Let's be honest," she whispered. "You were barely holding him anyway." My heart slammed against my ribs. "Holding who?" She smiled again. That same smile from the front of the church. Then she said it. "Poor Demi. 38. Alone. No one will ever choose you." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. Before I could respond, Mark appeared at her side. "Hey," he said quickly. "Lena was just helping me get some air." Helping him? At my father's funeral. "I need to step outside," Mark added, not looking at me. "I can't breathe in here." Lena slipped her arm through his like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I'll go with you," she said. I waited for him to say no. I waited for him to look at me, to apologize, to explain, to tell me this was all a misunderstanding. Instead, he nodded. They walked away together, leaving me alone next to my father's coffin. That was the moment something inside me broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It shattered quietly, the way glass does when no one is watching. That night, after everyone left and the house felt too big and too silent, I sat on the edge of my bed in my funeral dress and stared at the wall. Mark didn't come home. At 1:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from him. "Staying somewhere else tonight. We'll talk tomorrow." No explanation. No apology. No "I love you." I lay back and stared at the ceiling, replaying the day in my mind. The smirk. The touch. The whisper. That's when I realized something that made my stomach twist. The funeral wasn't the beginning. It was the moment they stopped hiding. And I was the only one who hadn't seen it coming. Mark didn't come home that night. At first, I told myself it was temporary. That maybe he was overwhelmed, that grief had pushed him somewhere he didn't recognize himself. I sat on the edge of our bed in my black dress, makeup smeared, shoes still on, waiting for the sound of his key in the lock. Midnight passed. Then 1. Then 2. The house felt hostile in the dark. Every shadow looked sharper. Every sound, pipes clicking, the refrigerator humming, felt louder than it should have been. At 2:17 a.m., my phone vibrated. A message from Mark. "Staying somewhere else tonight. We'll talk tomorrow." That was it. No "I'm sorry." No "I didn't mean for this to happen." No "I love you." Just a flat update, like I was a coworker who needed to be informed. My chest tightened so hard it hurt to breathe. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then tossed the phone onto the bed like it had betrayed me too. I lay back and pressed my forearm over my eyes, willing myself not to cry. I told myself not to do it. I told myself that snooping would only make things worse. That if I found something, I wouldn't be able to unsee it. But at 2:43 a.m., I sat up. Mark's tablet was still on the nightstand. He never took it with him. He said it was just for emails and dumb videos. He'd never put a password on it, never bothered hiding it, like the idea of me checking his messages had never even crossed his mind. That should have been a red flag. My hands shook as I picked it up. I unlocked the screen. His messages were synced. For a moment, I just stared at the list of conversations, friends, co-workers, family. Normal names. Normal life. Then I saw hers. Lena. The most recent thread. My thumb hovered over her name, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure I could hear it. Part of me still hoped it would be innocent. That I'd open it and see nothing but concern about the funeral. That I'd feel stupid and ashamed for doubting them. I tapped. The screen filled with messages. Not flirting. Not jokes. A relationship. Weeks and weeks of it. My stomach dropped. I scrolled. Lena, I hate pretending when I'm around her. Mark, I know. It's getting harder. Lena, she doesn't see you the way I do. Mark, with you, I actually feel alive. My hands went numb. I kept scrolling, my breathing shallow, my body moving on autopilot like it wasn't mine anymore. Photos appeared. A hotel mirror selfie, Mark's shoulder, Lena's hand flat against his chest, her nails painted the same color she wore at the funeral. Another photo, 2 wine glasses on a nightstand. Another, their reflections in a dark window, close together, intimate. I checked the dates. 3 months ago. 4 months ago. 5. This hadn't started recently. This had started while my father was still alive. While he was getting weaker. While I was spending nights at the hospital, holding his hand and pretending not to be afraid. While my sister was sleeping with my fiancé. My vision blurred. I pressed my lips together to keep from making a sound, tears sliding down my face silently. I didn't want the house to hear me break. Then I scrolled farther back. That's when I saw the message that made my blood turn cold. 2 days before the funeral. Lena, if your future father-in-law dies, she'll be too broken to fight. That's when we stop hiding. Mark, I hate thinking like that, but you're right. Lena, don't feel bad. She's always been weak. I felt sick. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't passion that got out of control. This was a plan. My grief wasn't collateral damage. It was part of their timing. My hands started shaking so badly, I almost dropped the tablet. I forced myself to keep going, screenshotting everything, every cruel joke, every lie, every promise they made to each other while smiling in my face. One message stood out more than the rest. Lena, after the funeral, I want you to choose me. In front of her. I remembered the smirk. The touch. The whisper. My stomach twisted. At 3:06 a.m., another message came in. From Lena. Fresh. New. She didn't know I could see it. Lena, did she cry today? I bet she looked pathetic in black. Something snapped. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But cleanly. I placed the tablet down on the bed, wiped my face, and stood up. I walked into the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red, my face pale, my hair pulled back the way I'd worn it at the funeral. I looked older than 38. I looked tired. But I didn't look weak. That was when I realized something important. They expected me to fall apart. They expected tears. Begging. Desperation. They expected me to disappear quietly so they could step into my life without resistance. I wasn't going to give them that. By morning, I had a plan. Not revenge. Not yet. Survival. At 8:12 a.m., I called my Aunt Ruth. She answered on the second ring, her voice already concerned. Demi? Honey, are you okay? No, I said honestly. But I need you to listen. And I need you to believe me. There was a pause. Then, I'm listening. I told her everything. The messages. The photos. The plan. The whisper at the funeral. When I finished, I expected shock. Denial. Something. Instead, she sighed. Oh, Demi, she said softly. I was afraid of this. My chest tightened. You knew. I suspected, she admitted. Lena's never known how to love without taking. And Mark, well, he's always liked attention. Tears spilled over. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because you loved them, she said gently. And people convince themselves that love will protect you. That afternoon, Mark came home. He walked in like he belonged there, like nothing irreversible had happened. He set his keys on the counter, loosened his tie and sighed. We need to talk, he said. I turned from the sink, drying my hands slowly. Yes, I said calmly. We do. Something in my tone made him pause. He studied my face, his brow furrowing. You okay? I smiled. Not because I was. But because I finally understood the game. I'm fine, I said. Sit down. He did. And for the first time since my father died, I felt something other than grief. I felt clarity. Mark sat across from me at the kitchen table like a man preparing for negotiations. His jacket was off, sleeves rolled up, hands folded neatly in front of him. He looked calm. Too calm. Like someone who had already rehearsed the conversation in his head and believed he knew how it would end. I poured myself a glass of water and took my time sitting down. That alone unsettled him. Usually, I rushed. Usually, I filled silence. Usually, I tried to fix things before they broke completely. Not this time. Demi, he began, sighing heavily. I didn't want you to find out like this. I raised an eyebrow. Find out what, exactly? He hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. Enough. This situation, he said. With Lena. There it was. Casual. Reduced. Like an inconvenience. How long? I asked. He looked away. Does it matter? Yes, I said calmly. It does. He rubbed his face. A while. How long is a while, Mark? He exhaled, annoyed now. Months. Okay. Months. Months. The word landed in my chest like a stone. And the funeral? I asked. That was planned too. He flinched. It wasn't planned. It just happened. I leaned back in my chair. That's interesting, I said quietly. Because your messages say otherwise. His head snapped up. What messages? I reached for my phone. He stood abruptly. Demi, don't do this. I pressed play. Lena's voice filled the kitchen, light and cruel. If her dad dies, she'll be too broken to fight. That's when we stop hiding. Silence swallowed the room. Mark's face drained of color. Where did you get that? He whispered. From you, I said. From your tablet. From the device you didn't bother to lock, because you never imagined I'd stop trusting you. He sank back into his chair. That was taken out of context, he said weakly. I laughed. Once? Sharp. Explain the context, I said. Slowly. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Nothing came out. I watched something shift in him, not guilt, not remorse. Fear. Not because he hurt me. Because he realized I wasn't blind anymore. I was lonely, he said finally, switching tactics. You were gone all the time. You were consumed by your dad. I felt invisible. I stared at him. My father had been dying. And your solution, I said evenly, was to sleep with my sister. He slammed his hand on the table. She listened to me. There it is, I said. That's the truth you actually care about. He looked stunned. What? You didn't fall in love with her, I said. You fell in love with attention. With someone who didn't need anything from you. Someone who wasn't breaking. He shook his head. You don't understand. No, I agreed. I finally do. He leaned forward. Demi, please. Don't do this. We can fix this. Fix. The word tasted bitter. You planned to leave me, I said. After my father's funeral. He didn't deny it. That's what hurts you, he said softly. Not that I cheated. That I chose her. I studied him carefully. This man had shared my bed for 6 years. And I had never truly seen him until now. You didn't choose her, I said. You chose the easiest version of yourself. He scoffed. You think you're better than me now. I think, I said slowly, that I don't need to beg you to stay. That broke something. His voice rose. You're 38, Demi. You think someone else is lining up. Lena's younger. She's confident. She doesn't carry all this grief. I finished. He stopped. Love? I added. His jaw clenched. I loved you, he said. No, I replied. You loved how I made your life stable. He stood up abruptly. I'm not going to be made the villain here. I stood too. You already are, I said quietly. You just don't like that I noticed. He grabbed his keys. Where are you going? I asked. He hesitated. To Lena's. Of course. Take your things, I said. You're not coming back. He froze. You don't mean that. I do. You'll regret this, he snapped. You'll be alone. I smiled. Not the smile Lena wore. A smaller one. Sadder. Stronger. I already was, I said. You just hadn't moved out yet. He left without another word. The door clicked shut. The sound echoed through the house like punctuation. That night, I didn't cry. I walked from room to room, opening drawers, closets, boxes, taking inventory of a life that had quietly stopped being mine. I found gifts Lena had given us together. Photos she'd insisted on taking. Little marks of her presence everywhere. I packed them all into a box. Then I sat on the floor and finally let myself breathe. Over the next weeks, the world rearranged itself without asking me. Mark moved in with Lena. Not quietly. Not discreetly. They posted photos together. Smiling. Traveling. Holding wine glasses in restaurants I'd always wanted to try. People talked. Some avoided me. Some sent messages that began with I don't know if you want to hear this, but. Lena called once. I didn't answer. She texted instead. Lena, I never meant to hurt you. We didn't plan it. It just felt right. I stared at the message. Then deleted it. I learned something during that time. People love to watch a woman fall. They wait for the breakdown, the begging, the collapse. When it doesn't come, they get uncomfortable. I went back to work. I handled my father's estate. I went to therapy and learned how much of myself I'd been shrinking to keep others comfortable. Slowly, quietly, I rebuilt. Not to prove anything. Just to survive. 6 months later, I ran into Lena at the grocery store. She looked radiant. Until she saw me. Her smile faltered. I nodded politely and kept walking. Behind me, I heard her whisper my name. I didn't turn around. Because the truth was this. I wasn't done with her. Not yet. I didn't hear from Lena or Mark for a long time after that. Not directly. But I heard about them. People always tell you things when they think you're over it. When they assume the pain has dulled enough to turn into gossip instead of a wound. They seem really happy, someone from work said one afternoon, too casually. They moved fast, but maybe that means it was meant to be, another added, watching my face for a reaction. I gave them nothing. That was new. Inside, though, I noticed the small details others missed. The smiles in their photos started to look forced. The captions grew longer, defensive. The kind of posts people make when they are trying to convince the world, and themselves, that they didn't destroy something precious to get where they are. Lena stopped calling herself private. She started posting everything. Mark quit his job. Officially, it was to start something new. Unofficially, it was because he'd been written up twice, and quietly warned a third time. Distractions. Missed deadlines. The kind of mistakes people make when they think they've won and stop paying attention. Lena supported him loudly. New beginnings, she wrote under a photo of them clinking glasses. So proud of this man for choosing happiness. I read it and felt nothing. That scared me more than the anger ever had. The first crack appeared when I got a call from my Aunt Ruth. Demi, she said carefully, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest. I braced myself. Okay. Did you ever co-sign anything for Mark? My stomach tightened. No. Why? She exhaled in relief. Good. Because his name is popping up in places it shouldn't. Apparently, Mark had taken out loans. More than one. Personal loans, credit lines, short-term business funding. All in his name. And he was behind. Very behind. He always said he was good with money, I murmured. That's usually how it starts, Ruth said gently. I thought about the last year of our relationship. The way he'd insisted on handling finances alone. The way he'd brushed off questions with jokes. Trust isn't loud when it breaks. It's quiet. A week later, Lena showed up at my door. I hadn't heard the knock at first. I was in the kitchen, music playing softly, enjoying a rare moment of calm. When I opened the door, I almost didn't recognize her. Her hair was still perfect. Her makeup flawless. But her eyes were different. Tighter. Edgier. Like someone who hadn't slept well in weeks. Can we talk? She asked. I considered saying no. Instead, I stepped aside. She walked into the house slowly, looking around like she was measuring what I still had. What she didn't. I won't stay long, she said. I needed to see you. I leaned against the counter. You're seeing me. She swallowed. You've changed. Yes, I agreed. That tends to happen. She tried to smile. It didn't land. Look, she said, lowering her voice, I know things ended badly. But I never wanted to hurt you. I raised an eyebrow. You planned to leave me broken after our father's funeral. She winced. That message was very clear, I finished. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she sighed. Mark is under a lot of pressure. There it was. I'm not your support system, I said calmly. I'm not asking you to be, she said quickly. I just thought, maybe you'd understand. You always did. I almost laughed. You don't get to take my life and then ask me for empathy, I said. Her jaw tightened. You think you're better than us now? No, I said. I think I survived you. Her eyes flashed. You're cold. Only to people who burned me, I replied. She left shortly after that. But the cracks kept spreading. 2 months later, Mark emailed me. Not a message. Not a text. An email. Formal. Careful. He wanted to clear the air. He wanted to close this chapter peacefully. I didn't respond. Then he tried again. This time, his tone shifted. He mentioned shared memories. Old jokes. Inside references meant to soften me. I ignored those too. Finally, he sent one sentence that explained everything. I just need you to confirm something legally. I forwarded it to my lawyer. That's when I learned the full picture. Mark's debts were catching up to him. Fast. His new venture had failed within months. He'd maxed out credit cards. Defaulted on payments. And because Lena had moved in with him, her finances were now tangled in the fallout. Collectors had started calling. Then came the rumor that made me stop breathing for a moment. Lena was pregnant. I heard it from a cousin who heard it from a friend who'd seen her crying in a parking lot. At first, I didn't believe it. Then Lena posted a photo. No caption. Just a hand resting on her stomach. The comments exploded. Congratulations. Hearts. So happy for you. I stared at the image, waiting for something to stir inside me. It didn't. 3 weeks later, the post disappeared. So did Lena's account. And then, one evening, as I was leaving work, my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Demi, a familiar voice said, shaky. It's Mark. I closed my eyes. What do you want? I asked. I need help. There it was. The thing Lena had sworn would never happen. I'm not the person you call, I said. Please, he said. Just listen. Against my better judgment, I did. He talked fast. About bad timing. About stress. About how everything had spiraled out of control. He didn't mention love. He didn't mention remorse. He mentioned consequences. You ruined my life, he said finally, frustration breaking through. I laughed softly. No, I said. You did that. There was silence on the line. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. You don't understand. Lena's not who I thought she was. I smiled. I know exactly who she is, I said. I tried to warn you. I'm drowning, he whispered. I was too, I replied. You pushed my head under. I hung up. 2 days later, I got a message from Lena. Just 3 words. I need you. I stared at the screen for a long time. Because for the first time since my father's funeral, the power had fully shifted. And now, the question wasn't whether they'd fall. It was what I would do when they did. I didn't reply to Lena's message right away. I need you. 3 words. No apology. No explanation. No acknowledgement of what she'd done. Just need. I stared at the screen longer than I expected to. Not because I felt tempted, but because I felt something unfamiliar. Distance. 4 years ago, that message would have destroyed me. I would have rushed to her side, desperate to fix whatever was wrong, hoping, stupidly, that love could still earn me loyalty. Now, it just sat there. Waiting. I went to bed that night without responding. I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, there was another message. Please. I don't know who else to talk to. I made coffee. I answered emails. I lived my life. Then, finally, I replied. What do you want? The response came almost instantly. Can we meet? I thought about saying no. I thought about blocking her. Instead, I chose something else. 1 coffee. Public place. She agreed. We met at a small cafe near my office. Neutral ground. Bright windows. Too many witnesses for drama. Lena was already there when I arrived, sitting stiffly at a corner table. When she looked up and saw me, her face crumpled in a way I'd never seen before. She looked smaller. Not physically. Emotionally. I sat down across from her and waited. For once, I didn't fill the silence. She did. I don't know where to start, she whispered. That's usually a sign you should start with the truth, I said calmly. She swallowed hard. Mark left. I nodded. I know. He says I'm controlling, she continued quickly. That I pressured him. That everything falling apart is my fault. I took a sip of my coffee. Is that what you believe? I asked. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to believe anymore. There it was. The confusion. The unraveling. The moment she realized she wasn't special, just next. I'm pregnant, she said suddenly. The words hung between us. I didn't react. That seemed to scare her more than anger would have. He doesn't want the baby, she added. He says he's not ready. That he can't handle responsibility right now. I leaned back in my chair. That's interesting, I said quietly. He said the same thing to me. Just with different words. She flinched. I'm scared, Demi, she said. I don't have anyone. I studied her carefully. This woman had stood beside my father's coffin and whispered cruelty into my ear. She had smiled while my world collapsed. She had taken what she wanted and assumed I would disappear. And now she was asking me to save her. Why me? I asked. Her lips trembled. Because you're strong. I almost laughed. You didn't think that 4 years ago, I said. She dropped her gaze. I was wrong. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she looked up again. I know I don't deserve it. But I need help. Guidance. Anything. I nodded slowly. I'll help you, I said. Relief flooded her face instantly. But she didn't hear the rest yet. I'll help you, I continued, by telling you the truth. And by setting boundaries. Her smile faltered. I'm not going to fix this for you, I said. I'm not going to defend you. I'm not going to rescue you from the consequences of your choices. Her eyes filled again. Then what are you going to do? I'm going to tell you what no one told me, I said. You chose someone who only loves himself. And you believed that stealing my life meant you'd finally be safe. She stared at me, stunned. It doesn't, I continued gently. It just delays the moment he does to you what he did to me. She broke then. Quietly. Fully. People nearby didn't notice. They were too busy with their own lives. That felt right. I thought I won, she whispered. I really did. I nodded. I know. She wiped her eyes. What do I do now? I stood up. You build a life that doesn't depend on taking someone else's, I said. And you stop expecting the people you hurt to clean up your mess. She looked up at me, searching my face. Is that all? She asked. I hesitated. Then I added, and you apologize. Not to make yourself feel better. But because it's the truth. She nodded, tears spilling freely now. I'm sorry, she whispered. For everything. I believed she meant it. That didn't change anything. I paid for my coffee and walked out. Later that night, Mark tried to call me again. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent one message. Do not contact me again. Then I blocked him. A week later, I heard Lena had moved back in with our aunt. She started therapy. She stopped posting. She got quiet. Mark moved on quickly. He always did. As for me, I didn't get married again right away. I didn't rush into anything. I rebuilt my life slowly. Intentionally. And one day, standing in my kitchen with sunlight pouring through the window, I realized something important. I wasn't chosen after all. I chose myself. And that was worth more than anything they ever took from me.